I know we're waiting for a couple of others to join us as well. So they can hop in a little bit later here. And I just wanted to, first of all, start off and say thank you for taking the time to hop on with us here today. My name is Jesse Hill. I'm the president of Tier 3 IT Solutions. I'm joined by Tinmar. She is our sales operations analyst, and she's going to be helping me out through the discussion here today. And I just want to remind everybody that we do have our chat going and our Q&A. So if you have any questions along the way here today, please feel free to post it in there. And just to get things going and to make sure that I touch on something that's of value for you today, if there's something, of particular interest or a specific question that you had that you were hoping we were going to answer for you today, just go ahead and post that in either the chat or the Q&A, and that way I can make sure that I'm speaking to your particular interests and that you leave here feeling like it was a good use of your time. And as we can see on here today, we're going to be talking just a little bit in more detail about how external IT service providers can enhance and leverage and streamline your business operations. And the reality is that technology is challenging. I was on a call with a business today, and as he was describing all of their different platforms and tools and servers and cloud, I was envisioning one of those people who, have you ever seen where they spin plates and they balance them on posts, and they're trying to keep as many of them up in the air as they possibly can at a time. And it can lead to overwhelm. And technology is a lot like that. And we need to always constantly be thinking about maintaining business operations and our security and our employee experience and our client experience. And it's a lot more than just help desk. And so having an IT partner who can act proactively on your behalf to help you avoid problems and turning technology into a tool and a catalyst for business growth rather than holding you back and causing problems and frustration. So the way that we see it, there's a couple different service models that are available. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but we often talk to organizations and businesses that are thinking about how to manage their IT. And one of the things that they often think about is bringing IT in-house. Because let's face it, we bring operations in-house and finance and sales and HR. And there are some definite benefits that you can see here, in the pros columns. Having that dedicated focus, understanding your business process, and that rapid response is, potentially a huge benefit when you have that function in the business. The flip side of it, of course, from our perspective, is that you've got a very limited set of abilities and knowledge and skills. In order to replicate, a proactive IT department, you're going to need a team of people, and we can talk a little bit about that scope and the knowledge base that's required to manage modern technology. And this wasted resources and the empire builders, it's interesting because the gentleman I spoke with this afternoon about balancing all these spinning plates, they found themselves in a situation where their in-house IT person went on leave. And because they're on leave, all of the knowledge and information and resources that they had built internally is inaccessible to the business. And they can't even ask the person for it because they're on a stress leave, on a medical leave. And that can be, a whole legal and HR issue when you're trying to continue to access that information. So, in-house IT has its pros, has its cons. Definitely, some businesses have done well with it, but I think more often than not, for most of us that have, let's say, less than 200 computer users, doing it in-house probably doesn't make a ton of sense. The next model that we see is what we, would generally call the reactive IT service provider, which is, a lot of the, you know, smaller, less established, less mature IT service operations that are really just providing that help desk support, that reactive service when you need them. And again, there's some benefits to this in that you only pay for what you use. They're good problem solvers, and their team are they're generalists. They know a little bit about a lot of different things. But again, from our perspective, that same responsiveness that can be a benefit is actually, in our opinion, a negative, a con against this model, specifically because if we, as business owners and operators, change our mindset and our thinking that we're not asking for them to solve a support ticket, we're asking them to eliminate business interruptions. And a reactive IT provider just is not built to do that. It's a very chaotic business because they're getting paid by the hour or by the problem, and so they're constantly running around from one problem to the next, which means that they can't often think through and implement well thought out, in-depth solutions. And it can be very difficult to grow those businesses. So, like any organization, they're meeting new clients and they're trying to manage the existing ones. They're trying to improve their operations. But the unpredictable nature of that business means that they often have to stretch themselves almost to the breaking point, or sometimes beyond, before they can justify bringing more people on the team. And then, of course, proactive IT. Now, the thing is that the word proactive has a drastically different meaning depending on which IT company you talk to. The slide we were just on, I've got a good friend of mine who runs a business in that space, and she does a great job of it. And the funny thing is that her business name has the word proactive in it, but the business model is actually very reactive. And so sometimes you need to ask those questions to understand what does it actually mean to be proactive. And so to us, it means that we've got people in roles that are working to minimize interruptions and problems before they impact your business. So we can see, the benefits that we have here. Now, there are some negatives that come from this as well. I already alluded to the fact that I will describe proactive one way and another business will describe it a different way. So it's hard to compare them against each other. And that means that it's hard for you as a business or an organization to understand the difference in the value they're delivering. And then this last one, I think a lot of people may not fully appreciate because they've never experienced true proactive technology management, but it requires a higher level of engagement, meaning, from our perspective, we need more strategic planning meetings, more review, more in-depth discussions, more proactive planning and implementation. And ultimately, the purpose of going proactive in this way is to enhance your organization's operations through strategic use of technology. Now, I've already alluded to a little bit of this here. Obviously, to us, we believe that being proactive is about more than just solving problems. It's about improving how your organization operates through technology. So when we bring when we bring a client on board, we bring our entire team of technology specialists. This means that we have, rather than generalists who have a little bit of knowledge about a lot of different things, we are typically built as specialists. So we have a deep set of knowledge around specific, key areas of technology like cybersecurity and cloud management, server configuration, network operations, and all those types of things. This allows us to make sure that we're assigning the right people to the right project or problem for the right amount of time, rather than you having somebody on staff that is being underutilized or misutilized. And then this last one here, strategic IT planning. I talk about this all the time, is that we want to take technology from a place where it feels like it's hurting your business to where it's helping your business, helping your organization achieve your goals and overcome problems. Now, this is just a little bit more detailed here. When we talk about this idea of having an internal IT person or a reactive provider, they really struggle with covering all of the knowledge and skills and experience that go into modern technology management. And that exposes your organization to risk and inefficiency. And so you can see these are just some of the key things that a proactive IT service provider is going to bring to the table, are not just the knowledge around these, but expertise. And what I mean by that is when you're talking to IT service providers, ask them who on your team is responsible for overseeing cybersecurity in your organization, meaning the IT service provider, and those of your clients. And the reason I suggest asking a clear question like that is that if they don't have a person with a name and a role and responsibilities, they're going to say, well, everybody works on cybersecurity. And we all know that if it's everybody's job, then it's nobody's job. And so that's really one of the key things, and I've alluded to it a couple of times, is that when you're trying to understand how an IT service provider is going to fill these knowledge gaps and fill these service gaps, it's about making sure that they have people with a depth of knowledge and assigned responsibilities around these types of areas within technology. And so the way that we see that this can help nonprofits, we talk about enhancing productivity, and I've alluded to this a couple times already, is that every time somebody on your team submits a support ticket, that's the common terminology that we all use. Oh, submit a support ticket. But if we all just stop a moment and take a step back and turn our phrasing around and we call it what it is, which is a business interruption, all of a sudden we start to realize that every support ticket, every business interruption is impacting your ability to communicate with your volunteers, your team, your clients, and your community. And so we want to minimize those issues by managing your technology in a planned, strategic, structured way. You can make better decisions. In our world, we want to be talking about investments and opportunities with our clients 18 months down the road, because the worst thing that can happen to you in your organization, in your nonprofit, is having your IT provider come to you and say, we need to invest in replacing our server this quarter or next month because the warranty is up. Well, you should have known that 6 months ago or a year ago. And so the more information you have, the better decisions you can make. Ties into data security as well. As a nonprofit organization, you likely have a lot of personally identifiable and private information that needs to be guarded and protected. And so making sure that you understand your compliance requirements, your insurance compliance requirements, your sensitivity and your risk factors, then you can start to build better data security strategies. And then mission and business and organization continuity. I hate to, and I try to find the nicest way possible to say this, but there is no such thing as a 100% cyber secure business or organization. And we need to all understand and accept that there are vulnerabilities and gaps and risks that we take with technology. And so by being proactive in your planning and your investment and your maintenance and your security, we want to make sure that your organization is ready to respond and recover in the case of a cyber incident so that you can maintain your productivity and your engagement with those groups that we spoke about a little bit earlier. So optimizing resources, this is interesting, particularly when we're talking about, nonprofits. And, really when we think about this predictable budgeting, we work with many nonprofit organizations, and it's interesting because, for us from the outside looking in, we have a perspective that even though they're all nonprofits, they have different structures, different sources of funding, different types of expenses that they need to carry. But the one thing that I've learned is that without fail, every nonprofit, if they know what their budgets and their investments look like in advance, they seem to be able to put that into a plan and make sure that that it aligns with their needs and their goals rather than just the immediate issues that's facing them. By continuously, reviewing and planning and implementing, modern technologies, it allows you to be up to date and ready to access new technologies. We think about, Copilot, Microsoft Copilot as an example. It's a pretty new technology still at this point. But if your computers and your network hasn't been, kept up to date, you may not be able to leverage all of its capabilities. As an example, having your information stored in SharePoint allows you to link it to Copilot so that you can get organization-specific insights. But if you haven't made that change and you're still storing things locally on fragmented mediums, you may not get that same ability to use those new technologies. When we go around this here, we think about that cost efficiency. Like I think we all recognize that IT expenses can add up fast. And so we need to make sure that when you're spending $1 on technology and management and cybersecurity, that it is the best place for you to spend that dollar. By continuously proactively maintaining, we want to avoid those costly downtime scenarios where a big issue is taking you offline. We already talked about how it enhances your productivity. And then this last one, the scalable solutions, is kind of interesting how this has come up over the last, couple of conversations in the last week here. But, we all need to find ways to put in 1 unit of effort and get out 3 or 5 or 10 units of result. And technology right now is changing at an even faster pace than it ever has before. We've talked a little bit about AI just now. And so we want to make sure that your organization is set up and prepared to scale by accessing those new technologies, and that you're not going to get left behind. I've mentioned this a couple of times. Strategic technology planning is something, again, that I think a lot of organizations understand is probably important, but they don't know how to approach it. And I've also mentioned a couple of times about how, the in-house IT versus the reactive outsource versus the proactive outsource. And I don't want to stress it too much, but it really is about the org chart. Strategic planning will only happen if there is a person whose job it is to do these items that we have listed here. And it changes from quarter to quarter. It changes depending on, the business goals, the organization goals and challenges you're trying to solve. And what's happening in the world of technology development and updates and those types of things. So if you're not able to look at this list and understand that you have a system and a process already in place to put check marks beside these that is continuously being reviewed and revised and updated and implemented, that's something that an organization like ours can bring to the table. Because when we're doing it for multiple organizations and businesses, it allows us to um, more efficiently guide you through that. And by doing this, we believe we can help IT and technology become a tool for your expansion and improvement so that the organization is scaling on the back of technology rather than being held up by it. And, we've talked a couple of times already about how proactively planning helps you maintain your budgeting and your resource allocation. It helps you make sure that the investments that you're making are supporting you and your mission. And so we believe that when strategic IT planning is done right, it's not about just maintaining or keeping up with other organizations. It's about leading the charge. It's about showing your community and your stakeholders and your team that you are forward thinking and looking at ways that you can improve their experience, and the technology is one of the ways that you can do that. So I think I've touched on this a little bit already, but really the proactive IT component is about turning technology into a strategic advantage that just kind of works in the background and doesn't isn't holding you up. Whereas the reactive model is about coming in and solving problems that are affecting your ability to service your clients and your staff and your community. Um, we we often talk to businesses about the hidden costs in technology problems, and I think we can all understand that it costs 2 to 3 times as much in lost productivity and lost opportunity than it does to avoid the problems in the first place. And so that's what we want to advocate for. Now, I just want to double check here whether we have anything coming in, questions or anything in the chat or the Q&A. Just a reminder, if you have anything that you want to discuss directly, please go ahead and throw it in there. We do have a couple that we get asked, quite frequently that I want to run through. I've alluded to this a little bit. How can I tell if my current IT company is being proactive? And truth be told, most IT companies are going to say that they're being proactive because they're doing patching and updating. They've got a good antivirus software and they're running offsite backups. But as I alluded to earlier, I would go back to them and I would ask them, who on your team is responsible for cybersecurity, for strategic IT planning, for compliance and standards alignment. And what you want to hear is you want to hear that they have specific people in assigned roles with responsibilities and tasks that are designed and planned in advance to help you avoid technology problems, reduce risk, and help you leverage that technology. So the example that I use is when we look at our business, I mean, we've been doing technology management for a long, long time, 35 years. And even up until 5 years ago, if you'd have asked me the question about if we're proactive, I would have said yes. But our org chart 5 years ago had probably about 75% of our staff on support desk. And support is reactive. You're responding to problems. Today, we've revamped we've built a new org chart, and we are 20% of our staff is on the support desk, because the other 55% that used to be there are now proactively working to avoid problems for our clients. So that's, in our opinion, what you want to hear, is that the org chart is aligned around being proactive. I just alluded to this. What does it mean to reduce business interruptions? Well, if we change the name of a support ticket to a business interruption, then the goal is to reduce the number of support tickets, because when a technician spends 1 hour working on an IT support ticket, it actually costs your person, your team member, between 2 and 3 hours of lost productivity, lost engagement with your community, coworkers, your organization. So every time we can, measurably reduce the number of support tickets or interruptions that your people face, it has a positive impact on your organization. And isn't hiring a proactive IT company expensive? So again, I can go back to our experience and say that the lowest price is not necessarily the best value. And in our experience, again, we know that when an organization is working with a reactive provider, your monthly costs are probably going to be less than when you're being proactive. But those costs, the invoices that you pay, don't reflect the true cost to your organization or to your business. And much like, if you have a vehicle that you take in for regular maintenance, twice a year, and you don't have a breakdown on the side of the road, those repairs may have seemed more expensive over time, but that breakdown on the side of the highway where you've got to get a tow truck and a hotel that you weren't thinking about and a last minute replacement of a key component in the vehicle, it's actually significantly more expensive when that happens. And that's what we want to try to avoid by being proactive with our technology. So that's the information that we have prepared here today. Again, happy to have a discussion, answer any specific questions that you may have. Really appreciate you hopping on and joining us here today. And if you'd like to connect one-on-one, I would appreciate the opportunity. Hope to chat with you again soon. And thanks for taking the time. We'll talk to you later. Have a great day.